Hi guys and welcome back. I'm Adam Thomas, thank you all so much for being here. Today's going to be an interesting one. It's something that I haven't done in over 5 years, which is build a coil tattoo machine. This is my Mickey Sharp's hybrid. We're going to take this apart into every single individual piece and then we're going to try and put it all back together. Hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it. And with all that being said, let's jump straight into building a coil tattoo machine. So this is the Mickey Sharp's hybrid. I use this for a fair few years for color packing and shading. It's a very versatile machine. And hopefully I can remember how to take it apart and put it back together again. So first things first, let's just bang a timer up in this top corner, just there. Boom. Sweet. So first things first, the tools that we've got. I've got a couple of Allen keys. So I've got a 25 and a 30mm Allen key, and then just a precision screwdriver to use those. This little cheeky tool, this is to align the armature bar. So this represents like the steel tube that you'd be putting in with your grip. It just holds the front and makes sure that's perfectly aligned. This tool, this is to make sure that all the front and the back spring and the armature bar, they're all aligned as well, so that keeps everything nice and square. These will make sense in a little minute once we start putting it all back together. I've got a little bag here which has got spare grommets in. I used to change my grommets pretty much every tattoo just to make sure they were nice and solid, but as we're going to strip this down we might as well change out these parts. I've also got a bag full of rubber O-rings which give you a little bit of bounce on the and a little bit of tension on the front and the back springs, so we'll replace that out as well. Obviously anything rubber is going to fatigue over time and it's going to deteriorate, so we want to be changing those out. That's pretty much all the tools. So first things first, let's start stripping this down. So we'll take off all the easy stuff first. So we'll start off by taking this front bit off, which is the front vice grip. So fairly self-explanatory. This is the bit that clamps down and holds your grip, your back stem on. So we'll take this bit out, take off this washer and take off this grip. The actual part that clamps down onto your grip, that bit is spot welded in, so we can't take that off. There is a little like sort of slit all the way down that allows it to squash and to hold on. I'll explain that a little bit more once we start using the tool to align it, so I've got something in there. But it is fairly straightforward. We'll take off this grommet. We can probably get rid of that completely just because we're putting a brand new one on. And then we'll start stripping down the armature bar. So first things first, I'm probably going to need the 30 Allen key bit. So we'll take off this this bolt that's holding down the back stem. On the back stem, the back spring. That's going to release the whole of the armature bar. So the armature bar together is you've got this bar at the front, which is called the armature bar, and we've got the front spring, back spring, the O-ring, and then just the little bolt that holds it all together. So we'll undo this bolt. So with coil machines, the parts that are going to need replacing over time are going to be your front and back springs. Back springs tend to snap, normally at the most inconvenient of times, and then the front springs can get worn down just because they're hitting off the top contact point there. So yeah, they both need replacing, obviously because they're in tension and they're bouncing all the time. You want these to be, whatever grade of front and back spring you're using, you want them to be at that optimum to get you the best results from the tattoo. We're going to replace these with the ones that are currently here instead of replacing them out, because I don't use this machine, so I'm not worried too much. And then the armature bar should stay pretty solid. It's not going to take much of a pounding. It does contact the top of the coils, but yeah, it's a fairly like kind of even hit on the top, so it's not going to be causing too much damage to it. A top contact post point. I can't remember what that bit's called. If anyone wants to correct me in the comments of my terminology, please feel free to drop that in the comments. A lot of what I'm probably going to tell you is just stuff that I've called things over the years. But yeah, it should all make sense. The main thing is just what goes where and how it all fits together. So we'll take off this contact point and the washer. I'm not going to take that out, a bit unnecessary. There's only one place that can go. Take out these 2 plastic washers, and there's a washer there with the bolt, and that releases the contact point that hits the top of that, which comes from the coil. So basically what you're trying to do is create like a whole circuit. Once we put it back together, I'll explain a little bit more how the coil system works, but just on a very basic level. So at this point, we'll take off the rear contact point. These basically where this is where your clip cord would sit in, hence why it's a bit worn down. I did actually file this down. I don't know if you can see how filed that down is. That just stopped my clip cord from slipping out, moving around, kept everything a little bit more sensible. Again, that was just personal preference for me, but yeah, every machine's gonna have slightly different contact points. So that's basically where your clip cord just sits in. So take off all these washers. If you've ever stripped a machine down before, you'll know that yeah, machine builders do love a good washer. So at this point, we're going to take the coils off. These are just 2 Allen key points at the bottom. Nice and easy. Again, another little cheeky washer in there. So tattoo machine coils are basically, you can sort of see, in fact, let me take this off and then I'll talk through that a little bit more. This screw. So if we take this out without breaking any of these cables. So tattoo coils are fairly straightforward. These have got wraps on, most will. Basically, you can see this top contact point here and this here where we're just taking these screws out. That bar will run straight the way through the middle of the coil. Now you normally get 8 and 10 wrap coils. There are a few that change. Basically, that means that we've got a certain amount of wraps of copper coil wrapped round. So these where these cables are coming out, that's going to be wrapped round, and that gives you basically an electromagnet. So if you've ever seen an old fire alarm or an old doorbell where it's got the little hammer that goes up and down, basically that's exactly what we've got going on here. So this is going to create a electromagnet which is going to pull down the armature bar, and then once that comes down, it hits the top of this, it's going to break the circuit at the top. That's going to turn the machine off in essence, which is going to bounce it back up using these springs. Once that goes back up, it'll remake the contact, remake the circuit, turn these magnets back on, slab it back down. So that's just going to keep repeating, and that's going to give you that up and down motion and the buzz and the noise that you come to know from a tattoo machine. On the back, we've got a capacitor. Basically, the capacitor's just going to hold the charge, just to keep everything a little bit more solid, a bit more punchy, and keep everything a lot more consistent. We've got the 2 coils that's going to give you just that slightly bit of extra bump to it. Most tattoo machines will have 2 coils. You'll find the odd one where machine builders used 1 coil, and there's some where they've used 4. A lot of the time it's just for show. 2's more than enough. Obviously, the more coils you add, the more weight you're going to add to the machine, etc. So at this point, this is the tattoo machine completely stripped down. So these are all the parts. Move some of these down, slightly off shot. So this is pretty much everything that is involved in a tattoo machine. They are a very simple device, but obviously you can create amazing pieces of artwork using a tattoo machine. Rotary machines are obviously very different in the sense of they're a rotary motor as opposed to using the coiled. What you're trying to achieve is basically the same. You're trying to make a needle go up and down and hit the skin consistently with enough power and enough torque to penetrate the skin. Both have pros and cons, but yeah, once you understand how a coil machine works, you'll get an understanding of how a rotary machine works, and it's going to make you a much better artist. So the tricky bit, putting all this back together, we're going to do this in reverse pretty much, just because it makes sense with how everything came apart. The first thing we're going to do is put the coil back into the machine. So I'm going to lay this on. It does get a little bit fiddly because we've got to tuck some of these cables through, but this lower contact point, we just pull this cable through the back, just so that can sit over there ready to get bolted on. And then this top one is just going to sit up so it joins up the top contact point, and at the back we just keep the capacitor nice and neat against the frame and tucked away so it's not going to get caught on us, on our gloves, or anything like that. So the two bits that we're going to need for the bottom are these slightly longer bolts. They're going to go straight the way through the frame into the bottom of the coil. We'll just nip those up, making sure that we're not twisting the coil too much, causing any extra tension on any of the very delicate cables. That one's pinched up. Also, we don't want to over tighten any of these as well. Obviously, we don't want them to come loose through the tattoo process, because obviously the machine's going to be vibrating quite a lot, but at the same time we don't want to strip any of the heads off these bolts, because they are very, very delicate. So they're pinched up nice and tight, no movement. So at the back of the machine, we're going to add the lower contact point, which is where your clip cord would touch the machine, which would give us the power. So first of all, we've got the bolt with a washer and then a little plastic spacer. So the plastic spacer is just going to stop any of the power going through the body of the machine, which obviously we don't want to do. We want that to go exactly where we want it to, exactly where we want to send it, so we get that nice current, that nice circuit going on with the going through the coils. So we're getting that consistent pull down with the armature bar. Again, just pinch that up, not too tight, but tight enough that it's not going to come undone. That gives us this bottom bit. So if you look at this as a movement, as a circuit, we're going to start with this point. So the power is going to come in here, it's going to hit these coils, turn them on, jump all the way through, and then it's going to go up to this top bit, and that's going to give us that complete circuit. So now we've got this bit on, we're going to add the top contact point. So we need this bit. So again, I've got the screw, the washer, and the little plastic spacer. Get that through nice and neat and tidy. Push the other plastic spacer onto the other side. If it will go in. Why won't you go in? Then we want a washer. And then a contact cable that's come from the coil, and then we'll just spin on this top section and just pinch that up. Nothing too tight, because we are going to need to adjust this top bit so we can get the right amount of throw onto the machine. So I'm going to slide this over here for 1 second. I'm going to get this little device out. So this comes in two parts. You can get these from most tattoo suppliers. I've had this for years, so I couldn't even begin to tell you where I got this from. This makes your life so much easier when trying to align the armature bar. So we're going to take out one of our new O-rings, get rid of this old one. I'm going to start off by putting the armature bar into this machine, into this little machine device. This is going to keep this nice and square and neat. So we're going to take our back spring. Now this has already been slightly bent, so I always liked a little bit of a curve on my back spring. I don't know whether you can really see that. It probably just looks very straight. It is very, very subtle. But this section here is going to mount onto the back of the machine. Then we're going to have this slight curve, and that's going to mount the armature bar. So it's going to give us that slight angle, that slight sort of angle up for the armature bar just to sit poised, ready to go. So lay our back spring on. We're then going to take, this bit, another little bolt, and a washer. I'm just going to slip that in, just so that it's just starting to bite. I'm not going to try and clamp anything down at this point. I'm going to take our front spring and we're going to put that underneath the washer, but on top of the back spring. He says like it's an easy thing to do. And then we're going to push this hole set up just into the front here. So you can see how the front spring is now tucked into the machine, into the little device. Got the armature bar nice and square, and then at the front everything's all aligned. So it's going to mean that our front spring is perfectly in line with the front of the armature bar. So at this point, you just hold that nice and square. Get the right Allen key bit. And we'll just screw that, pinch that up so it's all nice and tight. Now this other second bit, we're just going to slide that in. That's going to hold the back spring nice and aligned as well. And by keeping all of that together, we can now just pinch that. No, I've forgotten a bit. Take this off a little bit. And we're just going to slide our O-ring over the top and over the top of that bolt there. So that's going to give us that little bit of extra tension on the front spring. And like I say, a little bit of extra bounce. So with that all in there, we'll just clamp that down. Nice and solid. And that is our armature bar setup. So we've got a nice little bit of bounce and a little bit of movement. So fixing this to the machine is fairly straightforward. I'm going to lay this on, and then we're going to take our big washer, our big bolt, and we're just going to make that sort of finger tight, nothing too wild. Now with this bar, I'm going to slide this through the tube vice at the front, which is where it holds onto your grip. I'm going to slide that through just so it holds the front of the armature bar. That's going to make sure everything's nice and aligned and where it should be. And at this point, we can now just pinch up that bit just to hold it nice and tight so that everything's nice and square and where we want it to be. So I'm just going to untwist this top contact point. Spacing wise, I'm looking for sort of a couple of mil space, maybe three and a half mil. For me, that's going to give me the right amount of movement for the machine, so that once the machine's running, that movement is sort of a shading type distance. It's what I've sort of set my machines at over the time. Like I say, you can adjust this on the fly just to make sure it's exactly where you want it to be, but that's pretty much where I'd have mine. Like I say, if it's not doing what I want it to do to the skin, then I can always adjust that, but about a 3.5 mil movement is going to be pretty sound. And like I say, at this point, with the front spring touching this contact point, that's going to give us a complete circuit, which means these coils are going to be on. Once they turn on, this is going to snap down and get pulled down by these magnets, which is going to give us a slight gap between the contact point and the front spring. That's going to turn off the circuit, which means these magnets aren't going to be working. So that's going to let that jump back up, touch this, and then again the circuit's going to be remade, and then that's going to bounce that back down, and so on and so forth, and that's going to give you that up and down motion, which is going to allow us to tattoo. So the front vise slips on with the washer, and then we just slide the vise in. So this is just going to allow this to clamp down and hold on to our grip, nice and straightforward. Our little bag, we'll just grab ourselves a fresh little grommet, which is where the little O-ring on the top of the needle bar is going to sit. And then at that point, we are rebuilt just under 20 minutes. So that was building a tattoo machine, well, stripping a tattoo machine down and rebuilding it in 20 minutes. Woo! So there you go. That was building a coil tattoo machine. Not quite as hard as what I thought. It's pretty much how I remember. I feel like there's a lot of muscle memory involved in building this. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're not already, smash the like button and click the bell icon to get notified of all my latest videos. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all on the next video. Peace.